Hey guys, it's Michelle here, and Ronan Will is not here right now. Whoa, I'm by myself recording. Anyway, so I'm gonna be doing one of the characters. Give me 1 second. I really showed House Cerberus Occultist. She was a little tricky because of the skirt. As you can see, it's a little small on her. I started out with red because it's one of the primary colors, and I usually like to start with primary colors a lot for whatever reason. That's my preference. It might not be yours. So when I started painting, I usually start with the biggest areas, and for this one, it seemed like the skirt was for me as one of the primary colors and being one of the largest areas. Even though it doesn't look like it, the book was actually the book and the wand usually are the biggest, but it seems like for me, the skirt was a little tricky because it's underneath that book and wand, so I wanted to get that done and over with. Sorry guys, I am trying to figure out how to do recording and painting at the same time. Will probably has it better than I do, but we'll see how this goes. And again, I will apologize now, as you can see with my knuckles apparently showing. But I do realize that when I'm painting, I'm like, oh, there, I wasn't paying attention. So, as you can see, I'm trying to work with the skirt. It's a little tricky because of how small it is and how small the character is. And if you notice, Will and I have two different type of ways of brushing the paints. I'm pretty much very detail oriented on that. So now I'm doing the tie, because that was another red one that's pretty small. And now her bandana. Again, I like to do the primary colors for whatever reason, but that's my preference. If you don't know what the primaries are, it's red, blue, and yellow. I like to change it up because I think after I do the bandana, I went up with the wand, but I like changing it up. Sometimes I don't even know what I'm doing. So, again, I apologize for my recording, and you know, I like to be very detailed oriented with my work. And as you can see, I use my pinky to stable myself using my other hand. That's one of the ways you can help with that with the painting, especially I have shaky hands for whatever reason. Especially when it comes to small models like this, I am very shaky. And I don't want to repaint and repaint over and over. So, I go with this option and use my pinky as a stabilizer for my other hand. So, I'm trying this angle. I know Will's been doing different angles, trying to figure out the best way to show you guys how we paint. But it seems like this one's okay for the most part. If you want to comment below and let us know if there is a better way or better angle that you prefer for us to record painting. So I'm just going over the red again, just to make sure I didn't miss any places for it. I was trying to figure out if she has shoes or not, so I just gave it a guess because on her picture it doesn't show shoes. But in her model it kind of does for a little bit. So I kind of gave her just really quick random shoes. Now I'm working on the staff, which is like a heart, so of course you're going to have it red. I try to keep the character models same as the pictures the best I can. Sometimes I'll tweak it a little bit if I prefer. You'll find out later on that I tweaks a little something. Yeah, so I'm literally going upside down, sideways, trying to get the right angle because of how she's set up. Just still working on that piece of red, and then trying to figure out the colors. And probably hear in the background a cat meowing because I'm not giving her enough attention. So next I started doing with white, just because sometimes the primer is not white enough, you can say. Like, she has white stockings and her shirt's white, so I want to make sure that white is pops a little bit better in compared to the colors. And honestly, the only white is her stockings and her shirt, but a lot of times with the white will help patch whatever red I messed up with, so it'll help in the long run, especially with those little hair ties that she has on her, so it kind of helped that. And there I go, dropping her. Sometimes that happens when you're so focused on a paint, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I think I'm good, and then all of a sudden you just drop it. That's me. And I'm just going over it, kind of showing you a little bit of it. Fixing that little heart area where the red is so it doesn't bleed through. That's what I'm trying to look for. A lot of times the darker colors will bleed through the lighter colors, so I try to clean it up before I put any other color on, just so you have that nice color still. Sorry guys of my shakiness. So at this point, since I already had the red and the white out, might as well mix it and make it pink, because I'm going to be using that for the wand. That's why I just needed a little bit, just because that wand is just a little bit pink. Right there. Not really much to say about this part, just because it's just me trying to paint this tiny little piece of the heart. So let's see. I think I'm trying to pick different colors at this point. And me accidentally moving the camera. Alright, so at this point I actually started to get a leather brown, I believe, and start working on the wand a little bit. Try to use a small little bristle brush, because it's such a small little section on the wand that needed it. And it's always good to, just in case if you forget what you're trying to paint, always look at the picture. It usually helps, and that's what I was doing. I had the picture off to the side, so every time I'm like, okay, what should I do next? I always had the picture as a reference, because I wanted this one to keep to the picture the best it can. So after I got the little pink done, what was I doing? I was doing more different brown. So this is going to be the book. I try to keep all the browns in the same little palette because I don't need that much brown or that much of a certain color. So I try to keep them close together in small little drops because of how small the character is. I don't want to put a whole bunch of glob of paint and waste it. And that was my thing for it. So right now I'm working on the book, and then I just realized that they have like little swirls near the giant gem of the two sides of the book. So I was like, okay, well, forget this, I'm just gonna paint over it, because I tried to paint around it and that didn't work out. And of course, for this part I was a little messy because I knew that the gems will cover a portion of it, because it was actually going to be a darker piece. Because a lot of times when you're doing light pieces, the darker pieces will take over, and so you don't need that fix up with the white for that reason. And you see me doing a lot of like twists and turns because I just want to make sure the full coverage of whatever I was doing is covered, so I don't have to redo it over and over, because that was my thing. I hate redoing the same section over and over. So now this time I did like a copper. This is like a copper color, and that's going to be the lining. So you can kind of see right where I'm painting right now are the lines for it, for kind of like the edges of the book. And this is the part where I'm like, I'm not too sure where some of these lines are going or going for. So I kind of did my own little thing for that. It did take me a little longer for this character just because of how intricate she is, with little nooks and crannies and all that. As you can see, I really didn't start doing like the hair and the skin. I was just doing everything else because I was so hesitant doing the skin and stuff, and then going back over messing it up. And for skin, especially because she was a very light-skinned character, I have to mix colors, and I didn't want to remix over and over and waste paint. So I try to keep that last the best I could. So I'm still working on the paint here. And, next is the gold. So the gold is actually going to be the, that little gem in the middle, as you can see right there. It gives it a little extra color and a little pizzazz, you can say, because it just, in the picture, just looked like a normal gem, and it didn't have, like, anything special to it. So I tried to give it some gold motif to make it look a little nicer for it. And then I did some of the golds on the staff. So there's that. And comment down below if you guys ever done paints, like, you know, painting models or painting characters and stuff like that. You know, I'd like to know. And if you have any like special characters that you would love to like have a model of, that'd be awesome to know. You know, that'd be cool to see your character basically come to life. Or if you've done any other type of characters, like Super Dungeon, which this is it, or Star Wars. I know Star Wars has a bunch of characters and stuff. This is the part where, at this point, right now, I'm trying to search for the colors I need, because I believe I'm starting to do the tentacle that's coming out of the book. And the green color I did pick originally seemed too dark, because if I painted that dark one and then did the dark shade, it literally would just look black. And it doesn't look nice like that when on the character, with the character. So what's going on? Painting that tentacle. I try to keep it as this one color because I'm not doing the shading yet. So this is just base color. This is just base, doing the base colors. And with the base colors, I literally just picked one color for this guy, for the tentacle, because after the dark shade, I do the highlights, and with the highlights, I do the different colors and the different shades of it. You'll see later on, of course. That was actually the easiest part of this character, was that one piece, believe it or not. And then next is the yellow, which is going to be her hair. She is a blonde, so I try to make it as yellow as I can, because yellow, when it does the dark shade, it will be very dark. And it's hard to reapply the yellow once it's dark shaded, because yellow is such a light color that the dark overwhelms it. So you'll find later on that I find another way to help with the yellow. So now at this point it's the hair, and you know, I'm trying to show the best I can of the colors and whatnot, how I'm painting. So with this, you know, I'm just really putting the yellow on there. I'm not even trying, really, especially in big areas like that where you literally just can throw the color on there and you're fine. You know, you don't have to worry about certain little areas. I mean, with the red little hair ties, you know, I was a little slow for that. Like here for the bandana, for the headband, I was a little slower for that part, and especially near the eyes, because I wasn't sure if the hair goes over the eyes or it's close to the eyes with the model. So I was a little slower for that spot. But other than that, then once I realized I was done with that, I was a little cautious on the headband portion area. And then when I got further back, then I just threw the paint on there. Trying to get all the little crevices in her hair. That was the tricky part, because there was so much paint that I had to try to put on, because the crevices were so deep in the hair that I had to put a lot of paint in it to get around. It's just me basically touching up any little spots I miss for the yellow, because sometimes it happens. So after I did that, I was trying to keep her upright, because she's very top heavy for her, without her stand. So I didn't want to ruin the paint that I just did. So now this part, I'm up to the skin. So I've got Barbarian Flesh in white. Barbarian Flesh is a little lighter. It's a little light, but once you put the flesh tone in, it becomes very dark. So you add the white in there to help it a little bit. I put a lot of white because this character is very light skinned. So I was trying to think of that, where it's going to be like flesh toned, but still have the lighter skin. So this part is doing her hands, which is wrapped around the staff and the book. And those are a little tricky too, because after just doing like the small little intricate, now you're doing more small little intricate of it, which can be frustrating, that's for sure. Sorry guys, I'm still trying to learn how to use the camera and angle myself so you guys can see. So I'm sorry if all of a sudden the character just like disappears on the screen. It's just because I was so focused on those tiny little spots of her, so I didn't want to mess up. This is me just like literally sitting there trying to figure out, and here comes Will trying to see, and then nope, there he goes. Because this is one of his models that he was wanting to paint also, but I said no, I'll do it, and he was kind of a little upset that he wanted to do it for whatever reason. I think it's just he loves painting models, he really does. So for me painting a model that is his, he's a little hesitant because he's like, well, maybe this is what I want, not what you want type of situation, which happens. I mean, he probably wanted a certain way, but I told him, I go, I'm going based on the picture, and he was fine with that. So, sorry about that, guys, with the sniffles. I'm apparently coming down with a cold in Florida, go figure. It's always freaking hot. So, yeah, that spot around her neck was a little tricky because I didn't realize it until I was painting the skin, that she has a lot of skin showing, believe it or not, even around the neck and the belly. And you'll see me trying to figure out any other locations, like around the arm where the book is and her face. And if you notice, I'm not doing the eyes yet. I know Will likes to, once he does all the colors, he does the eyes. I wait until the very last thing I have to get done, which will be the eyes. So that's after the dark shade, after highlights, after everything I've done, then I will go over and do the eyes. Just because the eyes are very... they need to be shown a lot more, you can say. It's basically like the soul of the character. So I want to keep that last to keep, so I don't have it to go over and over again. So this part where I'm touching up the dress accidentally because I must have had I accidentally painted some of the skin color onto it. So I'm just fixing it to make it look like a skirt again, not just part of her skin. And then going over anywhere else I missed, because a lot of times when you're painting a character, you'll look at it over and over and realize you missed a spot, and here and there. It happens. You know, don't get frustrated and just continue on. It really does just happen. That's why you try to do one color at a time. Like do all red and then all green next. And, you know, try to even like sometimes writing it down on a separate, like a small little piece of paper saying like, okay, there's how many spots with yellow or how many spots with green. Stuff like that. It will help you organize a little bit easier if you want to start doing painting as characters, models. Oh, sorry guys. I didn't realize that I was away from the screen like that. So, this is literally me trying to look everywhere, trying to find if I'm missing anywhere, missing anything. just doing little touch-ups and making sure like no streaks were on the paint, because sometimes that happens when you're painting and then you can kind of see the streak of the brush, and if it doesn't belong there, like on the headband, it looks odd. So now this part is the dark shade. I used, quite literally, it's called dark shade, and you just get a big paintbrush and have at it. And you just go all over the character. I stayed away from her skin because dark shade doesn't look good with the skin. There is a thing called flesh tone, and you'll see that after I'm done doing the dark shade for everything else. This is actually called dark tone. Sorry, dark tone, and it just, you can see now that I'm doing the hair, you can see all the little crevices and stuff like that in the hair. And then you'll start seeing more detail all of a sudden come out of nowhere from this with the dark shade. With the dark tone. It's amazing what this thing does. You know, it makes the thing come alive and have that shading. It has that realism that you usually don't see when you're painting the base coat. So this is me trying to get the book done. See, you can actually see the little pages of it, like individual page. On her top, you actually can see like there's wrinkles and stuff like that in it, which is amazing to see while you're doing the dark tone. And you don't really realize all that while you're base coating. So it's so fun to see that once you finish your base coat, all of a sudden with the dark tone, the character is coming alive. So I accidentally dark toned her skin a little bit, which made it not the way I wanted. It made it very dark, of course. And actually, it looks shaded, like it looks like it was shaded, and that's not what I was going for. So I had to do a little touch up, and then I will go and do the flesh wash of the flesh tone. The flesh tone, it's just literally you put it onto the skin, the character's skin, and wherever it lands on the corners, it'll give that shade effect for the skin. It's a little different with the dark tone. The dark tone will just make it like pitch black, but with the skin one, it kind of like, especially in the ears, you know, it's not completely dark. It has some shade to it. And that's what you want. You don't want it too dark, so it's very shaded. And then you have to try to paint over what you've done already, which is a little harder when that happens. So after that, I finished shading, you can say. I'm just looking over it, making sure I have all the spots I want, and just touch-ups here and there, especially in the skin areas, because I didn't want the dark tone on the skin. I wanted the flesh tone. Just kind of showing you that right now, kind of like that dark tone. See how the difference is? Now it's a little bit later because I had to wait some time for the dark tone to dry, because it's so steep inside the crevices that it takes a long time for it to dry. Especially in the hair. The hair took a little longer because of how deep the crevices are for the hair. So now I'm going over especially the gems. The things are brightly colored for a reason. I go over it so it stays that brightly colored. Don't mind the Dragon Ball Z shirt if you guys recognize that. Recognize that shirt. And if I can even say, that shirt's over 9,000. Ah! Sorry. I can't help it. I'm very punny. So now this part is I'm doing the shading, and I love doing dry brushing. That's my thing, but it's very hard for this character to do that dry brushing that I love doing, especially the size of the brush I had. So I did the best I can doing like just a simple dry brush, and then when I noticed that I couldn't do it, I went to a smaller brush and did a simple dry brush for that. Where dry brushing, if you don't know, is you take the paint, you take a little bit of the paint. Actually, you don't see it right here. I do have it later on if you'll just wait. Where we actually saw a little ahead of beforehand, where I took a little bit of the paint. Then I took the napkin, and I took a lot of that paint off from on the napkin. Once I did, there's not that much paint left on the brush, and that's when you lightly just brush on. Not even brush. You literally like just move your hand a little bit to give it that dry brush effect. And that's what basically what dry brushing is that little light color that you want to add to it. And that helps when you have the dark shade underneath, and then something that's a little raised, like for example her skirt has like the different actually no, her hair is actually the best option, the best example. Her hair has those dark pieces where you can see. And so what you would do is you'll take the brush, put some paint on it, wipe the majority of the paint off, and just lightly on the character. And so with that, it's a fast option to get a big section done, to get that character design. You know, instead of what Will likes to do is the individually paint it on. I hate doing that because I feel like I'm going to accidentally get into the crevice and start all over again. So I try to do the dry brush, and it's just lightly do it. You lightly do it so it barely is on the character itself. But just enough where it doesn't get too deep. Now here's an example of the dry brushing. I took some of the paint, I took a lot of it off, as you can see on the napkin. The color, there's a lot of the color. And here, let's see if I can do it again. So I took a little bit, took a lot of it off the brush, and then just fastly do it, and you see that difference. It's a subtle difference. It blends. You could blend the like three colors using that dry brush because it's barely on the character. So it's a nice way to blend multiple colors on one section, as you can see. Like I had that light green, and then I put some red on there on the very tip. Everybody has their own references on dry brushing. I love dry brushing. That's my thing. And you know, I love doing dry brushing. Once I found out how to do it correctly, I can't stop. So you can see I'm doing very fast dry brushing. I'm barely putting the paint on the brush, taking the majority of it onto the napkin, and just lightly going through the character with the brush. So I'm not getting in that crevices, I'm literally on top, like on the raised areas. What Will likes to do is just individually paint those small little areas, and I feel like it just takes way too much time. And I don't think you want to sit here watching this as it is, slowly looking at it. So at this point I'm doing the white, trying to make the white more white, because she had the white stockings, the white shirt, and because of the dark shade, especially on the shirt, it made it very dark. You'll notice when I'll paint the shirt, like especially in the shoulders, all of a sudden now it's you know, it has color, it has dimension, especially in the shirt. You know, it's not supposed to be pure white, it's not supposed to be pure dark. You know, it gives it more color with the shading, and the little bit that pure white will help, because that's what the character's shirt had. So at that point, after I got all that shading for the white, and did a little bit more dry brushing for the hair, like on the tips and stuff, to give it a little bit more of the blonde look, because I'm actually gonna go over you know, I try to figure out how to get that darker color for the white, for the yellow, but it just turned green, and I didn't want that on the hair, so I changed it to something else. I changed it to brown. You know, you can get some of the brown ends, and as you can see, I'm gonna do the dry brush method, where you take a little bit of the paint, put a majority of it off onto the brush, where, you know, you keep going until there's like barely anything on the bristles. And I just lightly did like the ends and stuff, where she's like a dirty blonde, you can say. Or, you know, not everybody has pure blonde hair. I mean, if you do, comment below, that'd be cool to know. I mean, put it out there. You know, you're blonde and you know it. So after that, I went with the white and started working on, what was I working on? Alright, I was fixing the skin a little bit, because the flesh tone kind of bleed a little. Go figure. So I wanted to fix it to make it a little nicer, and now I'm working on actually the eyebrows and the eyeliner, or the eyelashes. A lot of times in anime, you all know, in the eyes they have that dark round spot. So for this one, luckily for me, it was already raised on the model, so it was easy to find it, and I don't have to try it to make my own and figure it out. But it was very time consuming because the tentacle and the wand was in the way of her face. So it was very hard to get that precise look, and it did take some time and a lot of fixing and moving and fixing, especially in the eyes. And see, if I already did the eyes, I had to redo the eyes over and over, and I didn't want to do that. And now I'm working on the teeth. And believe it or not, she had teeth on that. Now I'm trying to figure out her eyes. This is the part with her eyes. The character had blue eyes with a little bit of pink in there. So I wanted to make sure that blue is first, and I started with the dark blue, so I get that base color, the base look on it. And also trying to map out which way she's going to be looking. She's going to look sideways, she's going to look forward. So I did the one where it's the easiest, because everything is out of the way of the character's face. The other one is a little tricky because that book and the tentacle was in the way. So she's kind of probably a little cross-eyed. I'm sorry. It is hard to do eyes. Believe it or not, it is hard. Most people, if you've done drawings or anything to do with eyes, it's always hard to do the other eye. You could do one eye, but not the other for whatever reason. So at this point, I'm doing the light. There's actually a little bit of light blue in there. So I decided to incorporate that light blue. And what's nice with this paint is it's especially if you don't put a whole lot on the section, it dries pretty fast. So now, as you can see, I'm getting that light blue in there because it makes the eyes a little bit more dimensioned. It has a little shade, and you know, the dark on the top, light on the bottom. It's a lot of animes do that. So I'm working on that, trying to get those eyes correct. It's very hard with that book in the way. So at this point, I was looking at the character's picture, trying to figure out if there's any other areas that needed to be done. So at this point now I'm starting to mix colors because I noticed there was a little bit pink in there because of the staff. So I wanted to incorporate that little pink just so the character like connects with her weapons, you can say. So this one was very hard, and I used the tiniest little brush, like you could barely even see the brush. I barely put a paint on there. So it has that little bit of pink. And then I kind of went, and then when I was doing the eye, I noticed the pink on the staff was a little off. So I wanted to brighten that one up, because in the picture the staff actually glows. And you'll see once I'm done with the eyes, I actually do something pretty cool. And believe it or not, you can do dry brushing. You'll see. So at this point, I'm doing the dots on the eyes, the white dots. That kind of gives the character a soul, you can say. So after I did that, and I was trying to make the tiny little black for the pupil. And that was tricky, because you could barely even see it, and it kind of ruins that pink effect. So I had to go over with the pink and the white just to fix it, because the black pupil, really kind of messed myself up. Yeah, I think we're running out of white, so we have to fix that. I had to mix up new color because I was, during the drawing of the dark shade, it dried up. So I had to throw the piece out and mix up a new one. And this is actually much lighter than the actual color of her original skin, because I wanted to have that, where the cheeks and the nose is, a little bit of the ear, places where it was raised a little bit, to give it that dimension. Oh, cat hair. And especially like the fingers and places like that, where her skin's a little shown a little bit more. I wanted it lighter. So she's coming along very nicely, and then sorry guys. You know, she's coming along nicely, and this is me trying to figure out what else can I do with this character. And then I noticed her staff, her book, looks like I'm fixing the book because the book seems very dark. So I wanted to lighten it up. I wanted the book to pop, you can say, with the bright white pages, and because the dark shade made the book too dark and kind of blended with the tentacle too well, and you wanted to seem like the tentacle is popping out of that book, so not being part of the book. So I wanted the white a little bit. So here's the dry brushing, what I mean. Dry brushing is amazing when it comes to glow effects. this is what I mean about the glow effect. The wand glows, so I made her glow off to the side where the wand could be glowing. Now, it looks a little silly, but when you look at the character, it looks like the wand is glowing off the character. Because of the dry effect, you're not putting a whole glob of paint on the character. You're putting just this tiny little, like an airbrush, you can say, on it. So you don't lose the colors that you just painted. You're not losing it. You're not losing the detailing of the character. You're just adding a shade, an extra shade to it, and having a glow effect. It kind of makes the piece a little bit more. So at this point, I was making the glow effect a little bit better on her face, using a smaller brush. Still doing the dry brush, but on the small piece of her face. And this is the part where I'm like, let me add extra stuff. So I try to make little wording in the book. That didn't do so well, because I'm looking at it and it just looks like really random globs of scribble. It didn't look nice enough, so I had to scratch that and paint back over it. Lucky for me, the white was actually pretty good, and you could barely see the black anymore. And I think that was pretty much it. I was just kind of looking over the character, touching her up, fixing the eyes a little bit, the eyebrows, the eyelashes, a lot of the face stuff, fixing her mouth, and I think that was pretty much it. I'm just going over it, little touch-ups, and that's what you sometimes do. You stare at this character for hours on end, painting and painting and painting, and then it's like you think you're done, but you're like, no, I can add a little extra, and that's what I've been doing. And that was it. I was just kind of showing a little bit of what it was, and I'm still working on it. At this point, I was actually telling Will, like, get me away from this character, because I keep adding more and more to this thing. Especially in the eyes, because the eyes are so detailed, and it's like the windows of your soul. You want the eyes to feel real and feel like the character can exist in the game, like as a character in the game. So. And that is pretty much it. Just me going over and over and over. I don't think you want to keep saying that. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. That's the character. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all later.